started investigating this case for some time now. Now we are aware that Appiah Mensah is not in Ghana. So we have started the process of letting Interpol put him in the red notice. And one of the documents that you need to add is warrant of arrest from a court of competent jurisdiction, which you have already done. We have obtained the warrant, and now we have initiated the process. Interpol will look at the reasons why we are saying the person is a fugitive, and then they will inform all the member states to be on the lookout, arrest, and then extradite the person to Ghana. So we have started that process.
Okay, so we're told you just mentioned about a court warrant. We've just seen that's a bench warrant for arrest of all Menzgold directors. Is it just number one that this court warrant is for, or all the other Menzgold directors? And when did we get this bench warrant?
No, there's a difference between a bench warrant and a warrant of arrest. A bench warrant is where the person is already before court, and then maybe he's been granted bail by a court, and the person has jumped bail. That is when you go for bench warrant. But this is a warrant of arrest. We haven't taken him to court yet. I'm aware of that arrest, but that arrest was not done by the police. So if the arrest was not done by the police, he couldn't have jumped bail from us. Rather, we are looking for him. We are looking for him, and it is only number one that we are looking for. We have already obtained warrant of arrest for 2 other directors. We have started the investigations, and we have gone to a certain level. You see, when you are doing investigation, maybe from our strategies, you don't start by arresting. You need to arm yourself with enough information so that when the person appears before you, you can ask the right questions. So we started this investigation somewhere in December, and we have gone to a level where it is now we are ready for arrest. That is why when we got to know that number one is not in the country, we initiated the processes of informing Interpol so that the 194 member states will help us to arrest him. So any information that we have, example, the possible location, address, telephone number, we have to provide all the information to Interpol, and they will inform the other member states to be on the lookout for the person, and then they will assist us in arresting that person.
But if we've been looking for number one, at least from what we've been saying so far, how did he get out of the country without the CID or the authorities getting to know about it?
That would be very difficult to say because from our records, from the record that we have, we were of the opinion that he was in the country. It was when we realized, we tried to locate him, that we realized he's actually out of the country. How he got out would be very difficult for me to comment.
There was no record of him.
Is it a little too late? I mean, technically, yes, only because even though, you know, departments do need time in order to build the case and to really analyze the makeup of the company and what's going on, standard procedure is, well, once there is a suggestion of financial misappropriation, etc., and then it becomes more than a suggestion, you freeze all assets, you earmark buildings, you prevent people from traveling, and you call them in from questioning just to have a better idea of what was going on with the company. And we know...
You're not assuming you're culpable. You're saying, listen,
we just want to know what's going
everything,
on.
let me look at it. If you're okay, we'll let you go.
Yes, and and this is not just speaking in a vacuum. This is what happened in terms of, you've got a large amount of money, far more money, far many more people involved. The suspicion of financial misappropriation, and yet all these triggers didn't allow the freezing of the entire operation until all parties got a better idea in order to make a final determination.
You've been doing a lot of work, and you find that they're freezing his accounts, but there possibly might not be anything in there.
It's not that there's not anything, but you know, it's not enough to cover these
1.8 billion people.
The assets won't even attract the market
and
price.
Apart from
because
that,
they are being forced to the market. Who is
you know, we're also talking about what I mentioned in my petition
for those assets.
to the president, which is about what I mentioned to my petition to the president and the Attorney General, and
to which the SEC replied, right?
To which the SEC replied, is essentially, you know, my fear that there was a very sophisticated money laundering operation underway.
Which now the CID is confirming.
Confirmed, because we had reports from our insiders that they were asking traders within Ghana, that they would buy their goods abroad and basically pick up the money in Accra. So they'll pick up the cash in Accra and then pay for it through an international account, and different things like, you know, actual real gold being shipped out and different things like that. But these are like standard money laundering techniques. It's not rocket science again, and it's fairly easy to trace to a certain level once you start getting Interpol notifications out, which is why, you know, I went to the Interpol director very early on and said, how come this hasn't been done? And he said, well, you know, there's a chain of command before it gets to me to do this. And this is really important because, you know, money moves through accounts, it moves through individuals, it moves through close associates, family, friends, and the like. So it's not something that is that sophisticated that it's beyond us to put this together. And we should have asked for international help far earlier, because it would have made our job far easier.
We just want to stop. Now it's happened.
Now it's happened.
Give me your best case scenario and your worst case scenario.
The best case,
now that we know what is happening.
The best case scenario is that there's probably a couple of houses in South Africa that's been bought from this, and there's probably different assets that were offshore that can be traced, and as much can be liquidated, because we can't forget Bernie Murdoch's Ponzi scheme in America, which created the dreams for all these young men rising up and saying that they wanted to create a Ponzi scheme in their nation. So we can't forget that a virus went through our systems because it affected every level of society. It was a virus because people committed suicide.
And the best case scenario? And the worst case scenario?
And the worst case scenario is that we won't have enough assets to actually share amongst everyone. But we hope the justice...
This arrest shouldn't be limited to only the number one, the director. And most of the top managers are benefited
from this as well.
And this should be extended to
there must be a total sweep.
So a lawyer who's representing some customers of Menzgold, a customer of Menzgold, and on PM Express sharing their thoughts yesterday with Appiah Mensah. Well, here in the studio this morning, we've got an investment banker joining us with some perspective on where we are today. But where are we really? Yesterday, a lot of things unfolded rather very quickly. There was an arrest warrant for Nana Appiah Mensah, which was issued in Accra after his investment company Menzgold failed to refund clients' monies. The Circuit Court judge, which issued the warrant for the arrest of the CEO of the gold dealership company, said Nam1, as he's popularly called, is wanted for defrauding by false pretense. He's also wanted for money laundering. We played back to you the CID's boss explanation of whether or not they had arrested Nam1 earlier and how he got out of the country. You heard the response there. We've heard also from the lawyer representing some of the clients. She's rather very hopeful. Are there some assets that, you know, we could sell off and refund some monies? Let's hear from our investment banker in the studio. Roland Walker is also here. We'll have you know, an open engagement, and we'll want to also hear from you your thoughts on what we're discussing this morning. We'll get other perspectives as well with other persons on the phone lines. Mahama Idrisu, good morning to you. Thank you very much for your time.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Mr. Mama, good morning. And good morning.
Can we start from the angle of the Securities Exchange Commission? What's your understanding of what they were looking for from Menzgold, and how far in terms of what they found?
The very first responsibility of the Securities Exchange Commission is to protect the public investment from going down the drain. By so doing, they need to educate the public. They have to license companies. They have to supervise and audit those companies and make sure that the funds that they have gotten from the public is used for the purpose for which it is collected. And this ranges from funds and assets management companies, private equity, brokers, and all kinds of category of people who can go to the public and take money, or who the public can walk to and invest. And so what they were actually looking for is whether funds are taken from the public under the guise of investing those monies in other securities. Doesn't mean just listed stocks. Even commodities are there, minerals are there. And even we have ETFs, exchange traded funds. So they were looking for something that relates to their sphere to see whether he's breaching the guidelines for which they are set up. That's what the Securities and Exchange Commission.
What do you know they found?
What I know is that they sent a list of things, and I'm not sure it's been answered well. I've seen a sample of statement or messages that they have sent to people, and that doesn't constitute what we call a deal slip. If I go somewhere and give my money to buy a mutual fund, they'll give me a receipt. At the end of a quarter or a half year before they do an annual general meeting, they'll send me my statement for me to know what I invested, what I'm against or lost, and then they'll tell me the amount that my investment is worth. And that's something that is enshrined in the rules and regulations of the Securities and Exchange Commission.
No, but generally, going back, especially looking at what roles should have been played by the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Bank of Ghana, why was there this a bit of uncertainty between the two institutions as to what sort of activities that Menzgold was involved in and how they have that linkage and ultimately the effect it could have on people who were investing there?
Now, the Bank of Ghana has an area that it regulates and issue licenses. Now, according to them, they have done their mystery shopping, moved them from acting as a microfinance company, and they changed it into a gold dealership, went for a license from the Minerals Commission. I'm sure the license even expired before these troubles started, because probably they also found out that what he was doing, he wasn't following the guidelines and the regulation that for which they have issued the license. Now, at the time the Bank of Ghana realized that the system has been changed and that he has moved out of the microfinance system into the minerals area, they probably said, okay, let's monitor and see whether he's coming back or not. But they find evidence that he was still taking money. What was this money being used for? Was it investment? Was it deposit? Was it for buying gold? If money was being taken, then it must either fall under Bank of Ghana or it falls under SEC, because the money is coming from the public. And he makes adverts. In fact, if I'm raising money for a company, that's what we term private placement, and I don't make noise to the public that I'm raising money for A and B and C. Maybe I'm raising $50 million. It doesn't, I'll send it to people who understand what the company does. SEC's concern is riding on the ignorance of people or the public to take money and call it investment. That is a crime. So if you are going to do that, you have to be licensed, so that even if you don't tell the people exactly what to do, when I come to do my audit, I'll know what you are doing. And if you're not doing the right thing, I'll take off your license. And that will save the public from getting into more. And they will make sure that you are able, because your assets and liabilities or the areas that you have put in the money is reported every 15th of the month after a quarter end. So they will know how much is in treasury bills, how much is in fixed deposit, how much is in bonds, how much is even in other securities. And so when they want to stop you and they take your license, they'll trace this investment and be able to make sure that investors get their money.
So at the time the SEC issued their statement asking them to stop new business, did they know of all the things that you've outlined in terms of what they were investing in? Officially,
I'm not sure. And you see, and because it was a typical Ponzi scheme. A Ponzi scheme, the moment you stop the inflow, it just takes a month or two, and the trouble starts. Because the initial investment from investors is not around again. All what you are doing is matching your inflows against your expenditure or what you use the money for. So far as there's excess, then you can pay interest. If there's no excess, it means that you don't even have money around to pay. And that's what brought the crack.
Now, moving forward, and you have also done your own observations and picked bits and pieces here based on your interaction with people who were interested in investing in the company. What did you find out?
You know, I happened to stay in Kasua from 2007 or so to 2015. And I always pass by. So one of the Fridays, on one of my leave days, I walked in there to try and see what it is. I know when you want to do these things, it doesn't take much for it to hit your mind that there's something that is not right.
But you're not an ordinary person. You're an investment banker. You've been in there for many years. You know how these things work. So if you walk into a setup like that, you could quickly figure things out that other persons, such as myself, perhaps may not.
Your mind is not the ordinary.
What actually struck me was, you know, companies that even the front desk doesn't know what is happening. It's very serious.
Explain that.
You walk in and said, good morning, madam. What do you people do? The person looks at you as if, why do you ask that question? Get somebody behind me to ask. No, but you are supposed to know. You ask a manager, so where do you invest these monies? The manager doesn't even know. So what are you supervising? What are you marketing?
But at this point, it wasn't a Menzgold as we know it.
No, it wasn't a Menzgold.
It was Men's Bank, I think.
I'm sure they went from, is this Z to C? Yeah. Something. But I just saw Menzgold. So
it was C to Z.
Yes. Okay, C to Z. Okay. So I went in there and I asked questions. If I have money to invest, what are the that's what I always do. The processes, what are the forms that I need to fill and all. So I went through all those things and the rate of return and all. You know, those days they were doing a few basis points. When I say basis points, some percentage above the treasury bill, depending on whether you're doing 91 or. And that's what was the best professional way. So, but I saw that they were a little bit ahead of the usual basis points that we do in other places. So it took me another 3 years. Then I said, oh, let me go into their website and see what they are doing. So when people tell me that, oh, it has been in existence for 5 years, I'm like, 2018, 17, 16, 15, 14. No, I've known this thing for more than 3, 4 years before 2014. Yeah, because I was driving and I was staying at Ofako along the new market road. So every day I have to pass it because those days there was no other routes to get to where the overhead is now. So I was seeing it. And then I did my own search. In fact, when I do a search about an investment banking company, the first thing that I look for, who are the people who are managing what people bring to them. I'm not a fan of procedures, neither am I a fan of too much certificates. But I want to see certificates that says that, look, the person is putting what he has learned in practice, plus the experience that he has. If practice doesn't get you out of trouble, at least the book will get you out of trouble. So I went through. The level at which I was in, I'm like, what?
What did you find out on the site?
I saw a lot of polytechnics. I saw a lot of, not to degrade polytechnic, but I saw a lot of levels, DBS, a lot of levels that look.
Who were directors?
Who were actually top management. So I got the form. I know Ghanaians who don't like reading. We pick it, even when people go to
can I just ask, what was your interest at this point?
Like I'm sitting here, I'm speaking because I just read useless things. I read carelessly. You come here, I buy this paper, and I've already finished reading it. Somebody has written something on banking, whether the recapitalization will do for us again.
So it's not because you had heard
that
there was anything going on, but you just was interested.
And those days, my advice was not just to advise you to buy shares, but to put a whole perspective of the investment environment. Because our practice tells us that give the investor the best information you have and let him make what we call an informed decision. So that when he makes an informed decision, if there's any problem, he carries it. You didn't tell him or her, choose this.
So this was the open mindset that you had.
So you go through real estate, you go through mining, you go through land buying, those who sell on credit, you go into shares. And the question I always tell people those days was that when you come to me, you ask me, this thing that, especially if it's an IPO, this thing that you want me to buy, if it's your own money, will you use it to buy it? I'll tell you the truth.
You want the client to ask you?
I want the client to ask me. There are some companies that listed that clients have asked me, and I'll tell them I won't buy it. And I'll actually print I used to have 2 account statements, my speculative one and that for the kids. Those ones I don't sign to buy, I just buy. Somebody signs, so I can't even sell.
Okay.
So I'll print it and tell that, you see these 16 companies, I bought them because I believe that they'll do well. You see the gains that they have done. You see this one is making a loss, but I am not selling now.
Okay.
So my idea was to learn.
Okay.
So that when somebody comes, and I've actually saved a lot of people. Look, don't send your money to Menzgold, please. That's my advice.
Oh, you've actually you advise people on
that. You know, these Asians, they have their own groups that they go for weddings, adores. So some of them ask. I know they'll ask in our local dialect. Oh, we heard that this company is giving this kind of... Hey.
You tell them, don't go there.
So your findings was just what you discovered on the website, including what made up top management and the qualifications.
And I spoke to some other clients, those that I know. What are your... Look, the returns were coming when the monies were going. And I said, look, you can't continue receiving this kind of return. Trust me. I was telling another station that, look, anybody who has put in 100,000 in the last 3 years should forget his money.
Why?
9% times 12.
You've already made your number.
What is your problem? If you are putting 100,000, you have received 385,000.
The returns have over.
Why will you go and cry for the 100,000?
I've got a question for you. So you don't work at the Securities Exchange Commission. You're not part of the regulators.
No.
But you're an investment banker.
Yes, but I've worked at places that actually fully and constantly interact with them.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Shouldn't the regulators have been doing what you as a private person were doing?
One, they should have been doing that. Two, whether they have those resources to do that. Three, whether they have the power.
They don't have the power?
No.
They are the regulators.
Even when the banking issues start, the Bank of Ghana doesn't pick people and send them to court. Do they? No. They refer them. The Securities and Exchange Commission, just like the Bank of Ghana is doing, first of all must prevent people from the public from losing their money. They also have to prevent panic in the system for false alarm. So they have to make sure that they have complete authenticated information. If he's not regulating the person, he can't walk in there and go and say that I want to do an audit. In what capacity? He don't have that capacity.
So the Bank of Ghana, in what capacity were they issuing their statements, warning people?
Money is concerned. There was deposit taken. They have done their own mystery shopping, and there was money being taken. The moment money is being taken from the public, is the responsibility of the Bank of Ghana and the Securities and Exchange Commission.
So the two of them.
But is it just warning people?
One, if they don't license you they have to warn the public that you should be very careful. One, just not just sending money to the company, but even the kind of return that people are returning. I know we fail to realize that the higher the return, the riskier the investment becomes.
But you seem to also forget that Menzgold was not just sitting down watching the Bank of Ghana issue the statements and warning people.
Oh, definitely.
They responded.
Yes.
Convincingly, if you like, if you're talking to some of the customers.
No, that is the customer's point of view. But for me, for any response that was coming, I just saw it as a defensive mechanism. No. If you respond to an issue, you put together all your certificates in the papers and say, these are the licenses that I have, and I can see the dates there.
Well, we have companies that were regulated, had all the necessary licenses and approvals, and still went down under, were doing the things that were untoward and against the regulations.
Yeah, that's what becomes the fault of the regulator. Okay. Not to stop it, but it also depends on the kind of reports that they send to the regulator and how the regulators go back to check that kind of reports. No, I've sat on the board of a company and I resigned. I sit on another board. I've had 4 board meetings. And I sat on another for 8 months, there was no board meeting. And I said, good morning.
Now going forward, you mentioned what you said their mode of operations were and how sustainable they are. And I've heard many other experts, risk, banking, etc., all say that when you people say that the way they were operating and collecting the deposits were unsustainable to pay the interest in the medium to long term, what do you mean exactly? And by what other things around the world can we just oppose that?
Let me give you an example. I sit here and I know that the 91 Treasury bill is probably 14.2. I haven't looked at the rate in the last maybe 1, 2, 3 weeks. So let's say that it's 14.2. That's probably the 6 months. Maybe actual 91 is 13.8. Maybe 2 years is probably 15. Okay, that is one side. I know that the stock exchange is currently not making, the all share index is not performing well. I know the return. I've gone through, I have the software that checks world gold prices, and I have it. I know real estate prices, how you buy a land, how you document it, how you sell it, installment payment and all those things. I know it. Then I go back and I say that what are the margins even when a trader goes to China, goes to Saudi Arabia, Dubai, South Africa, UK, and buy bags and clothing, what is the margin that he will have to put in by looking at his hotel bills, his plane ticket, his wahala, everything, and put them together and say that, look, my margin is probably 60-70%. And this 60-70% is foreseeable future because some people walk there and buy and they have to pay in installment. The goods or the clothing will probably sit there, even the shop that is here. There are some shoes that he has gone to buy that takes 8 months for somebody to come and pick it and buy. So that's why I say that 70% is foreseeable future. And then I walk, probably I travel and I say, look, how much is this phone? Probably in South Africa, I bought it equivalent of $400. Then I come to Ghana, it's an equivalent of $700. So that's $300 profit. Let's say probably he paid duty up to 100. Listen, $200 off a $400 or a $500. That's probably 30-40%. Okay, even if you divide, let's say that people go to buy every day. If you divide it by 12, 40 by 12 will probably give you probably 3, 5, 6, 7%. All right. So you sit down and say that, look, I'm importing rice from Brazil. Okay. And I'm probably selling a 25-tonner for, say, 200 Ghana cedis. But I bought it for probably 90. Duty probably took it up to 120. Let's say that's a 50, 60%, or even 100% profit margin. Divide by 12. That is not 10%. That is not 9%. Okay. So I sit down, you tell me, you give me, the economy grows at what rate? Even when we had the biggest growth of 14.8.
So 10% was unbelievable.
Yes. What is the inflation rate? What is the real rate of return? Maybe I said the year.
Is it only Menzgold that was giving that much interest?
Look, I've had problems with funds and assets management go crazy. Oh, how much is he giving you? 25. I'll give you 30.
But it's a market.
That's not the market of death.
And usually these are short-term trading instruments.
And they pick them and they invest them in long-term avenues, investment avenues. And then they run out of working capital. They are not even calculating the return that they are getting and their margins, whether the margins are coming. So they end up using clients' money to pay salaries and expenditure, only to come and sit down and realize that the funds are not coming as they used to come. That's when it dawns on them to go for recovery.
Why do the people, the ordinary person, finds it difficult to understand that this is just not right? If somebody promises you so much, then the risk is really high.
You know, in life, there's a time to sit. There's a time to walk. There's a time to run. If you're supposed to walk and you run and you fall, it takes you a longer time to get up. We want to fly. We want to achieve our dreams. The system is so hard and very discriminatory that everybody wants to make it by all means. By all means means that I take a loan that I can use interest that I earn to pay, and take another loan that I can use my salary to pay and use it for something different. But when this one is not coming, all the loans go to hit on my account and I come to point zero.
That's financial engineering. And ordinary people can do financial engineering.
I don't like using certain words.
No, I know, because you're a professional. I'm talking as a lay person, and I'm thinking...
If I were in my village, that my uncle's son or daughter comes to say this to me, I'll tell them that you're a foolish boy.
Okay, so I'm a foolish boy. But at the end of the day...
You're not my uncle.
No, at the end of the day, we have a market, and I'm speaking practically from because I know many people, and I've also been involved in the type of business that they were calling people to invest in. The returns they were paying people were as far as how much they thought they could collect from others to pay those who had initially invested. That system of round-robin investment, in which you ask for deposits, you promise me a certain percentage, I pay you. Mamavi also comes to invest. You take hers to pay me. Everybody else in the room does that. We get more people and we build more clients. Is that not how the banking industry is structured?
No.
Or because theirs is regulated?
The banking industry is not structured that way.
You collect deposits. And you turn it around.
Yes, with risk management principles.
So
with corporate governance guidelines.
What's the difference?
And with
practically.
And with full professionals who have responsibility for themselves and responsibility for the people they serve.
But how do you know that all these things you're outlining didn't exist here?
If they existed, we won't get to where we are now. Yes. Because even the financial controller should be asking his colleagues, where do we send these checks and write these checks to? The marketing department should be asking, what are our margins and how does our margins come in? The operations people should be monitoring the bank accounts and making sure that these things happen according to the regulations that we are guided. Do we actually have the actual license for the total business we are running? No. So even they themselves knew that this is where we're coming to.
I want us to use
But they thought that this will continue for a foreseeable future. Just like the high interest rate people were earning and doing fixed deposits, and they thought that it will continue. Just like some people who had borrowed money from the banks think that taking a 10 million loan, let me buy a car first. Instead of thinking about the proposal, following the proposal and the guidelines that are sent to the bank. Look, Ghanaians just don't like paying. That's one. Ghanaians will definitely go for anything. Look, there are two things I want you to tell a Ghanaian. He will never listen to you until he falls into the hole. Money. Have you ever seen somebody who's dying for a lady that you're talking grammar, you think that you're talking tree? No, true.
So, just the last 5 minutes that we have, will the people get their monies back? You heard the lawyer there. She's very hopeful. It is alleged that the CEO of Menzgold has got investments in other countries. There's a mention of South Africa where he's alleged to have some real estates there. Would the people get their monies back with all the things that you've heard and seen?
I am not a doomsday person. I have said this on several places, even before it got to this place. Look, even banks are struggling to sell houses and properties.
True.
The money is definitely not in the system. That's true. 3, there's a long legal process to be able to have these assets to sell. 4, everybody who is in this kind of business have the cash cows, the public assets, the ghost assets, then the asset that the close association know. You need voodoo to be able to see the blue chip assets.
You need voodoo?
Yes. Because you will never know it. Even when they are out of business for 10 years, those blue chips still earn revenues for them. Look, I remember when they said they were giving people 15% of their principal. I spoken to a radio station. I said, look, run and go and take your 15%. If you have invested in Menzgold for at least 1 year, if you add it to the deficit of 7,000 that is left for you to get your principal, please go for it and forget.
At least you've made some loss, but you've recovered.
No, you've made profit. That is equivalent to at least 15% return, and that is normal in our system. If you take 6 months, that is 14 point something, and you add a real rate of return, please, that is enough. Look, it will take us a very long time.
What's the use of his arrests and people's recovering their monies?
This arrest should have come at least in February last year.
State that again.
I said this arrest on this procedure that will get serious now should have happened in February, March last year.
So it should have happened, let's say, a year ago.
A year ago.
Why? What difference would that have made?
They would have seen blue chief assets. The legal procedures would have started by May, June. Other transfers and garnishing of accounts and all those things would have been done. Traveling would have been difficult.
I see you saying it's too late now.
It's an understatement. But let's see what happens.
It's more than too late.
No, it's more than too late.
Okay, so
look, it takes you 1 month to transfer any kind of assets.
So you're saying by this time, he's comforted himself somewhere and waiting for whatever outcomes there are in our system.
Tell me, which Ghanaian will run this kind of business and thinks that only his accounts in Ghana will suffice? No. Do you know how many ATM cards he works with? Then you think that he can close his account at a bank in Ghana or all banks in Ghana and probably close all accounts in Dubai or in South Africa. He goes to Gabon and he's there. Is it not Visa? Is it not MasterCard? Is it not what is the China one? They all work everywhere.
So the phrase "we've frozen his account" is for his account. It doesn't. How does it work then?
There are rumors that there are some banks that he has actually gone and said, "I have 10 million, just give me my money," and he's taking it. You are going to freeze that account. What money is coming in there? There's no money flowing into those accounts.
And you're saying that
if those balances were there, he will pay some people.
And you're saying that because this action that's taking place now should have taken place 1 year ago, he's had too much time to prepare himself.
Too much time. At the time SC stopped inflows of deposit from clients, that was when the world started cracking. Even at the time that his legal and everybody and corporate affairs manager were battling with everybody, the public and all those things, this thing should have been done.
Mr. Idris Mahama, thank you so much for your insights. Thank you for this conversation. Perhaps
my pleasure.
We can have you again, not necessarily talking Menzgold, but to help people in terms of where should they send their monies? Because it sounds like there are a bunch of people out there.
No, this time is you get people call you. Oh, I have money, I want to. In fact, they actually don't even know that I'm not sitting in an investment, a typical fund and assets management or no. They will call even as late as yesterday around 1:30. I have 2,500. I want to invest. You simply tell the person, let me call you back. Because you have to call places that you actually trust that they have the nitty-gritty of investment banking, that they have a lot of cash flow and a lot of less non-performance.
So shall we allow you to prepare yourself so we can have that conversation, seeing that there are a lot of people who need that advice?
No problem. Always available.
All right. Thank you so much for your time today.
We've enjoyed it. Only that your last bit is a bit frightening.
For him in particular. Our next conversation started with the rector of GIMPA, Professor Philip Ebo Bonzi Simpson, coming up with some proposals and hitting hard on the choices that we make in terms of representatives in Parliament. Well, fallout of that particular statement on Constitution Day, we've got a great conversation in the studio. Dr. Ali Duseidu is a senior political scientist at the University of Ghana. Ernest Amar is a director of research and content development. Odikro, remember all the research that they've done in the past in terms of parliamentarians absenting themselves, for instance. We've got Dr. Rashid Draman of the African Center for Parliamentary Affairs, a man who is knowledgeable. He's got insight into what happens in other countries, what the status quo is. So we've got a great conversation. We're going to subject all the proposals made by the rector of GIMPA right here on the show. Kojoyang Singh has got that. And please stay with us. Don't even flip the dial.